Hey guys, I'm Tiffany, and you found us in the Wise Guys membership. And this month we're talking about the Ajna Center. So if you're brand new to HD, we've got some great beginners articles for you. I'll put them in a link, and you can also find them in your membership. And so we're going through the body graph to look at all the different 9 centers. And today is the perfect day to be talking about the Ajna. So Leisha, we I appreciate your wisdom and guidance, and I look forward to learning from you with everybody.
Thank you. And of course, I always, if you guys think it's helpful, I can share a screenshot so we know which center and we can kind of point to it. Is that helpful, Tiff, or?
Heck yeah.
Okay. I will share that. Okay. So this, of course, is my, body graph. We're going to be talking about the Ajna Center, which I have undefined. So we're going to talk about that. I definitely invite you to pull up your body graph if you have or have not, looked at it before, just so you can kind of, as we're going, I mean, there's so many gates and so many channels and so many activations, red, black, all the things in our charts that, I mean, it's a lifelong study and exploration and discovery. So I definitely invite you to pull that up if you'd like, so you can see, the different gates you might have activated in the Ajna, if it's defined or undefined, and you can kind of consult that as we're going back and forth. And, of course, I love mybodygraph.com. It's a source. It's a great source material, original source. You know what I'm trying to say. It's from the original source. There's a lot of human design stuff out there that's sort of pop HD. And so, kind of like when we look at anything, it's like we want to learn the language properly and not add other conditioning on top of what we've already got going on with pop HD. We don't want that conditioning. So I always like to give a plug for like the source material. And that's why I like my body graph. Anything from Jovian is going to be source material. So I think that most of us are probably familiar, but I always like to kick it off with just human design as a general, idea. There's a lot of things we can say human design is, but of course ultimately it's a decision-making tool that shows us the mechanics of how our energy particularly and uniquely and specifically, precisely works in the world, whether we are aware of it or not. And so it gives us, these mechanics to be able to experiment with making decisions as ourselves. Now, the mind can't be aware of all of that until we start to experiment with it. So that's kind of the whole thing. It's not a belief system, it's an experiment. And only each individual can verify it for themselves by giving it a try and seeing what data you collect over time. So of course, it gives us our clear strategy and authority for decision making. And you can see here, I'm a projector. So my strategy is to wait for the invitation, and my authority is my splenic, is a splenic authority. So it's like a quick, intuitive, that's correct for me, or don't do that, So each person has their own strategy and authority. I definitely invite you to look at that if you have not looked at that, or of course we can explore that in a reading, but you can see that in the information on my body graph. That's a very, core thing to know. Okay, so when we look at the Ajna, so last week we talked about the head, where we take in inspiration and ideas, and we sort of, that's where all the really inspiration and everything, the points of the human thought process start, is where we're taking in information, or if we're defined in the head, we're sending out, inspiration for others. We're an inspiring fixed source of conditioning for others. Now you can see that the head only connects to one other center, and that's the Ajna center. So it's like if all the ideas come in here and it's this pressure center to think, to figure out, to conceptualize, it's like, the top of the body graph is a pressure center, the head, as well as the root. So we're kind of this pressure sandwich. It's like, figure it out, the drive to create and live and have experiences. So the head sort of the circuitry is it's connected to the Ajna. So the ideas come in, the Ajna is the processing hub, right? It's like sort of the, where we conceptualize, where we, it's where we form opinions and ideas about it, where we sort of structure it in a certain way in our minds, where we can turn it over and over, where we make sense of the confusion and the doubts. And, that's what the Ajna functioning is. So the yeah, so this is kind of what the head and the ajna is really sort of our mind almost. Like that's how our mind is working. And the ajna is this mental or mind consciousness. So we also have this body consciousness, which comes from the splenic center. There's 3 awareness centers, and that's where these different consciousness, you know, flavors are coming from that I'm mentioning. The 3 awareness centers are the ajna, the spleen, and the solar plexus. Okay, so this is the mind awareness, the mind consciousness. This is the body consciousness, the spleen, and the solar plexus is the spirit consciousness. And you can, you know, we've done a talk on spleen and solar plexus, so I definitely invite you to go back and review those. I personally can hear this stuff a million times, and I always get a new thing, which is part of my open head, open ajna. Is I'm not fixed in the way that I sort of take in information and process it. It's different and flexible. So again, the ajna is sort of this processing center, and yeah, it's really where we conceptualize. And if you are defined ajna, you conceptualize in a very fixed way. You're not gonna, you know, you're not gonna have all these different ways that are sort of flexing depending on the time, the person you're around, the environment you're in, and all of that stuff. You're going to have a particular way of processing, and you're going to feel certain about what ideas, opinions, and you know, concepts come out of your particular way of processing. This theme of the ajna is really about certainty. And now, does it mean that a defined ajna person is correct in their certainty? Not necessarily, but that's what's correct for them. They're certain that they feel that way. So when we have an undefined ajna, you know, we can sort of be aware of who around us is activating our ajna so that it is defined, who around us has a defined ajna, are the transits causing the ajna, which by the way, right now, everyone's ajna is defined due to the transits. So, you know, and am I feeling like I need to be certain about this thing? You know, am I uncomfortable with uncertainty? Do I need to act like I know the answer for myself and others, you know, in order to make this open ajna, different ways of processing sort of more comfortable and feel more safe in a way, right? Okay, so the biological correlation for the ajna is several different things, just like all the centers. It's hard to really just categorize in one, you know, the spleen is, you know, this one thing. It's not, there's kind of, they're all weaving together, but it's the neocortex of the brain, the visual cortex, and the pituitary glands. That's the ajna. So, you know, of course, in the base of the brain, these anterior and posterior pituitary glands are at the base of the brain, and they act as sort of the body's maintenance, like headquarters almost. Like that's where all the signals are going out to the whole body. Especially the pituitary sends sort of hormonal messages to the thyroid, which you know, is kind of the instructions like for the whole endocrine system, which helps to keep us functioning, alive, healthy, all of those things. So really, if you think about, you know, how our mental consciousness is operating is really determining a lot in our physical experience as well, because that pituitary is determining how everything is regulated hormonally, and endocrine system and all that. Tiffany and I have a joke because when we first started getting into human design and discussing together, we just would be like, okay, relax the pituitary. Was it relax the pituitary? Release
pituitary grippage.
Pituitary grippage. We'd be like, release the pituitary grippage, which is like, I'm holding on, trying to figure it out. Like my mind is just turning. You know, I'm trying to like be certain or feel like I need to resolve the confusion or whatever. And so we'd be like, but we knew, we identified, oh my God, it's the pituitary that then regulates everything. And before human design, I forget what the source was, but I had been aware of this fact that the pituitary can calcify, it can sort of harden, right? And so we sort of were riffing on that, just like release the pituitary grippage. We don't need to be certain. Life is uncertainty inherently, right? Were you going to say something, Tiff? Oh shoot, you froze.
Yeah, everything froze. I can hear you now.
Oh, good. Okay. Were you going to add anything to the pituitary grippage?
No, I had just forgotten about it because once you say that, like I can actually, I don't know where my pituitary is, but inside I can actually relax and feel it, feel a relaxation, and it's like behind the third eye and it's there, there, you can cramp and clench it up just like anything. So I just love that you reminded us of that. That's
Yeah. We
brilliant.
hadn't said it in a while, but we were like, we need a t-shirt, release the pituitary grippage. No one needs to know about human design. They'll somehow get that, but it is really funny to pituitary grippage. Who says that? So but you can feel it physically. Like when I think relax the pituitary, like the tension, the tense feeling, like I can feel that. It's almost like I can feel it go across my whole head. Now that may be a bit more challenging for someone with a defined ajna, right? But it can still be a very worthwhile experiment to be like, let me just relax my pituitary, just in whatever awareness way that comes, because with the defined ajna, it's even more pressure and anxiety to really figure out, because there's this fixed way of thinking. So we'll get into that. Okay, so as we said, the head and ajna really work together as the mind. Obviously this head center is where all the sort of ideas and information comes in from the collective consciousness, from the transits, from the planets, from other people, from all of that come in, and it's this pressure to transform those ideas into kind of into reality, into ultimately action, right? If you look, it's going from the head to the ajna to the throat, and the throat is where we speak. It's where things actually come into form. It's where manifestation happens, because now we're speaking and sharing it with someone else, and now it can actually become something real. So just to say, everything's sort of from the bottom of the body graph and the top of everything's moving toward the throat to manifest. There's this pressure to communicate and share and talk, and so we're going to do the throat next call in a month. So it kind of makes sense to do them in order. So the head and ajna really work together. This head is this pressure to figure things out, and the ajna is like, okay, let me start my little calculations and conceptualizing. And it's really to transform the pressure of the head into useful information for research, review, communication. It's kind of like the interpreter. Okay, so now of course conditioning is going to skew how we're interpreting things, defined or undefined, right? Our experiences, our painful things that have happened, our the neural pathways that are sort of going a certain way, all of that is going to affect how we're interpreting things. Okay, so now nothing can actually happen with these ideas unless we communicate them to others. So that's where it kind of the rest of the body graph circuitry comes in. The thing that with the ajnas, if you do have a defined, anyone really, this is sort of where the anxiety can come from. Shelley, were you going to say something? Oh, you have a defined ajna is what you're saying.
I came in late. I've been moving furniture. See how sweaty I am? I have a defined ajna.
That's right.
So
you have the 4323, right? Shoot.
I do. And
so. Yeah.
I have the 6124 and have the 47, which is only halfway, just the gate, and nothing is, it's open. My throat is open and it's connected.
That's right. Your throat. Yeah. So you don't have this, you have this individual channel here. Okay. Yeah, that's right. I remember that. So yeah, if you have anything, well, and I think Rachel, do you have a defined ajna as well?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so you two have defined ajna. Heather, I'm not sure if you do, but I know Tiffany, April, and I have undefined.
I haven't had a reading yet, so this is the first time I'm
soaking it in. Okay.
Yeah, but I'd like
Okay,
to. So if you just send me the information, I'd be happy to set something up.
Yeah, no problem. We can, Tiffany will give us the rundown of that at the end, I assume. Yes, okay. So yeah, this is a powerful source for anxiety, because it is that I've got to figure it out. I've got to churn in whatever way that, your ajna is designed, basically. And we're going to look at the gates and things in a minute. So the thing is, though, one of the very basic ideas of human design is that we have evolved past our mind making all of our decisions. Now, most of the world and society, you know, we still get that messaging and everyone is doing that. They're letting their minds make the decisions. And that's why the world is sort of in this chaotic, not self state that we can all feel. We can feel the frequency is distorted of the world in general right now. However, human design gives us the opportunity, the promise, the potential of being able to operate correctly in ourselves. So we're not continually adding to that collective insanity, right? And so this is no longer equipped to make decisions, because as an interpreting center, a processing center can do, the Ajna, it can go back and it can say, oh, this is the decision. And then you act on that decision. It doesn't go well. And it's like, oh, well, okay, well, then this would be the decision, you know, and it can just flip flop back and forth. You know, you can convince yourself either way. Others can convince us either way. It's kind of just this sort of, it's for measuring. It's not for making decisions anymore. We have now, you know, we now have this entire binary consciousness with body and mind and this whole awareness, all these awareness centers that we did not have several hundred years ago as humanity. So there was a mutation a few hundred years ago. And that's why we see 9 centers and not 7. So I just wanted to do a little plug there. Now, ultimately, you know, all of this is just going to go back to your strategy and authority. You can be aware of your openness. You can watch what your not self questions are. I love to look at my not self questions very, very regularly, like they're on repeat in my own Ajna, measuring all the time. And I have a lot of them. So there's a lot to consider, you know, but it's just this, okay, let me look at my not self. Great. But I'm coming back to my strategy and authority. Did I wait for the invitation? Did my spleen give me the yes or the no? So that's going to depend on it's always going to come back to strategy and authority. You can look at all these details and and it's fun and I enjoy it. And I'm an investigator and I love it. At the same time, it comes down to strategy and authority. So it can be as simple or complex as, you know, as you're sort of drawn to. Okay. So we cannot trust the Ajna and head with decisions anymore, because it can always give us either way, either side. And it can always just go, oh, well, okay, well then, and then justify. So it's like, well, then it's not dependable. But it is excellent as an outer authority. So the inner authority is our, you know, for me, it's the spleen, right? That's my inner authority. That's going to be my body consciousness that says what the, you know, if that's the correct path for me or not. And so that's the inner authority. The outer authority is what we are here to share with others. Now we're designed to share in a certain way with others. And that's where the 4 arrows come in. That's where the head and Ajna comes in. That's where all this black stuff on the right comes in. Okay, so that we can explore further in a reading, and I know we have with many of us. So that's what this is for, is that we, you know, the head and Ajna processes in a certain way and it communicates in a certain way to others, and we are each designed to be correctly, there's a certain particular correct way that we can express to others that is meant to be what we contribute to the collective, to others, to relationships, to, you know, whoever we're communicating with. So, okay, the gates of the Ajna, there's 6 gates you can see here coming from this awareness center. From the head, we've got the gate of realization or oppression. Okay, so you can see I have that one. It's this fear of futility, making sense of confusion. This is actually the gate of confusion, 64, coming from the Ajna going down. So we've got the confusion coming in. Well, the 47 is going to make sense of that confusion. And it's this, there's this, each of these gates has a mental anxiety attached to it, because again, the Ajna is sort of where the anxiety comes from. So when I feel anxiety, I go, okay, am I self-oppressing? That's what my 47-3 is. It's oppression, it's realization, but it's self-oppression. Am I self-oppressing? Am I, you know, do I have ideas that I'm afraid aren't going to be accepted or heard, or don't have a spot for them or whatever? Or am I trying to pretend like I'm certain and try to have answers when I don't need to be certain about anything, which is a trip to think about. So, okay, so the confusion is being, you know, sort of pushed into the Ajna in this 47 to, let me make sense of this confusion so that I can realize what, you know, what is happening here. The 24 is, now Shelley, you said you have that 6124. The 24 is the gate of return, or rationalization. And it's fear of ignorance. Now, the thing that this attached to, I'm sorry, this keeps popping up. The 24, the 61 is the gate of inner knowing. It's like occult knowledge. It's the gate of sort of these universal mysteries. And so it's this idea of sort of churning that and rationalizing that and measuring it in a certain way. That's what the 24 does. It's the fear of ignorance. So it's this need to know. It's this knowing that you have, like this antenna that sticks up out of your head is the 6124 and picks up on occult knowledge. So this is knowing the answer in a pulse. It's the mental anxiety that you'll never know the answer, that inspiration will never come, or that you won't be able to explain your knowing, because that is a mechanic of that 6124 channel. You may know, but it may or may not make it to the throat or be invited, or you may not respond to sharing it or whatever, right? So I get why that fear is there. So the gate 4 is youthful folly or formalization. Now this is, it's a logical channel. It's like doubt after completion. Now I have that gate, but in an undefined head and Ajna. So the doubt is sort of like, let me formalize this in a very logical pattern and make sense of this doubt so that I can sort of look for the gap in the pattern. Where's the gap? Because doubt is a good thing. Doubt has a purpose. It's so that we can see where the hole is in the logical pattern, so that we can then, look for a different pattern, look for more information, whatever. So this is the fear of chaos. Formulating a logical answer, mental anxiety, you'll never find order in your life and you'll always be in chaos. The need to find and give answers, whether they're correct or not. Yeah.
Can I jump in there? So I have the 4, and that is so me. I mean, in so many ways, but I thought it would be good to kind of go back through each one and just, I'm just curious, if you have your chart, does anybody have the 47? Like the 47 is the first one we talked about. And if you have any questions about that specifically, we could do that one.
And then when you say have, you're saying like red
Defined.
and or black?
Yes, so red and or black. And I don't think we need to go into red, black, or planets or hexagram lines. Just simply if you have it lit up, if it's colored in any shape or form. So just curious, do you guys have the 47? Do you have questions about it? Go ahead if you do, yeah. Unmute thyselves.
So youthful folly of you, the way I'm
No?
looking up everyone's charts.
All right.
Like Rachel doesn't have it.
What about the 24?
So I have the 47.
Oh.
My is defined, and then I have the 47, but it's just the gate, not
That's okay.
channel.
So you've got the 47, and do you have any questions about it, or does it sound like that fear of futility is fitting in some ways?
Yeah, sure. I feel like I'm not, I guess, going to be productive. And, I always am like thinking that that's like an Enneagram 3 thing. Like I'm just, doing all sorts of accomplishments because I guess, I'm afraid that like, I'm not going to be useful. I'm not going to be, worth anything if I'm not productive and do things. So.
I'm making notes because we're learning from each other here. I don't have that one, but I might meet somebody that has that one and know more about them. What about?
I also find, of course, it's my design sun, so it's a major thing that I've been watching and observing. I hear myself when I talk say a lot of things about like, oh, I realize, and before human design, I would say like, well, you can't unrealize, like I realized something and once I realized like I can't unrealize it. So just knowing, then finding out human design, I'm like, I hear myself, you'll hear the language of these keynotes coming out from what you have defined in your chart. And so, I find myself like, it's like, almost like there's an oppression from myself or from others, or life is oppressive. Then there's this sort of realization, kind of like different layers of realization over my life. That's like, okay, but no, but you're oppressing, or you don't, this is actually not oppressing. If you sort of shift your, look at it a different way, or stand over here, or another person, shares or whatever. So anyway, just, I find, because it's interesting when some of the words, it's like oppression and realization, like, but that's how it feels to me, as with that being such a huge part, because of course these top 4 gates, on is 70% of our life force. It's our incarnation cross. So, so yeah, just sharing my own realizations with the 47 being such a huge part of my expression.
Sweet. I say that too, like, well, I can't unsee that. I can't unhear that,
No. Yeah, exactly.
Does anybody have the 24?
Yeah.
If you do, so the 24 was the one where it's like fear of ignorance and just getting information in a pulse and kind of not knowing how you're going to explain something.
Shelley has that channel. It is in red for Shelley, so it may be something that's like, okay, maybe, but then over time you start to, oh, okay, I see that, a little more.
Because it's subconscious.
Yeah, red means we're not aware of this body side until we start to experiment. Okay. I don't know if anyone else had it. I remember, Tiff, I think your mom had the 24. And the 24 is, so it's called the return, the gate of rationalization. I also, in my mind, it's like repeating. My child has it. My child has defined head, I'll just show you. Defined head and Ajna, and every channel and gate between them except the 24. Except the 61, which his dad has. So that they have all this defined, but he'll repeat. It's like this repeating, and he's 5. So sometimes he'll just literally say the same thing over and over. And I'm like, oh, it's the 24. Like, and I don't tell him, stop repeating that, or anything. Cause it's part of his natural just way of being. It's part of like his thinking, but even just out loud, like the language he'll use, it'll be just like this phrase that he'll sort of latch onto sometimes. So anyway, that's also sort of a thing that I think of with the gate 24. So it can be inside your head, just over and over and over with something, because it's trying to figure out the inner mystery, So yeah, I don't know if that's your experience, Shelley, with that whole channel.
Yeah, like I think about those things all the time. I don't know. I guess I'm still confused about that whole channel.
And that makes sense because it's red. So it's not like, it's almost like yeah, anyway, not to get into the red and the black, but it is something that they say that you're unaware of the red, and so that's a whole experiment to look at what are my activations just in black? What do I identify with? Because there's a whole lot to do with just what we identify with just what the black is. You can literally, in my body graph, you can, oh, wow, I have no activations with just what I identify with. But that's the experiment. Let me start to pay attention to my throat center and my spleen center, which is my only 2 centers defined. Let me just watch, and what can I collect data-wise? What happens? How do I feel? What are my signatures? Do I feel projector success or bitterness, right? And generators, it's satisfaction or frustration. Generators and projectors are 90% of the world. So I'm just covering those 2 for now. I think probably all of us on here are one of those things. What were you going to say?
No, Rachel had to go. I was just going to tell her bye, but
oh, bye, Rachel.
Okay. So yes, my mom did have that one.
Yeah.
The 4. So we're back up to speed now. Sorry for dragging us back for a second there. The 4 I have in red, meaning I might be more, it might not resonate as much, but it really resonates because, when you're talking about like fear of chaos, and I'm quad left, right? So I really like things to be in order. I really like things to be clear. I really like things to be easy and clean and open. And I like to, my aunt has a story about me when I was little that I was doing this like my cousin and I were singing Christmas songs, and we were going to go sing for the family, you know. We were going to sing for ourselves, but the idea was we were going in order. And so each song I would be like, okay, Jingle Bells is number one. All right. And then now we're going to add, I can't think of any Christmas songs all of a sudden. We're going to add Christmas Tree Rock. And that's going to be the second one. So it goes Jingle Bells and then Christmas Tree Rock. Okay, now thank you, April. Geez, going to add Silent Night. So it's going to be Jingle Bells, Christmas Tree Rock, Silent Night. And I was like going in this order, right? Because what? I mean, maybe it has something to do with that fear of chaos, fear of confusion. And I can go back and ask not only the not self-themed questions, but we have this huge list of self inquiry questions where it's like, well, what am I really afraid of? What if there's chaos? Then what happens? If chaos, then this. If this, then that. And just if then my way down to what I'm really afraid of, and kind of calm that, because chaos does make my skin feel like fire, and I really enjoy Tetrising and organizing and sorting things out. And I can't even think clearly. Like that's another way of, I guess I haven't heard myself say it. Like I can't think clearly. I can't think straight if my environment is chaotic, or my thoughts are chaotic, or my relationships or my finances are chaotic. I can't do anything except get things in order first. So that's one way that I experience that gate.
Oh, I love that, because it's the I never feel like I say that word right. Formalization, you know, it's like formulating the chaos into some sort of a semblance of, you know, of, I suppose, order with the quad left, which is these 4 arrows at the top, which just means it's very strategic, very order steps, you know, can see all the steps going out super far. Yeah. And I love that, because my other child that's his personality son. So that's like his whole thing, you know, is like main thing of his personality. So I like hearing how that feels to you. And it does depend on the rest of your design, because you're quad left, so that I can see, and you have the 64, which is confusion before completion. So I can see how those sort of work together with the quad left, you know, in a certain way for you. So great outer authority of sharing that for all of us to gain wisdom. Okay, so I do want to look at these 3 gates down here, because of course, you know, the pressure comes in from the head, the processing starts, and now it's almost like the bottom is like, okay, this is some of the measurements and conceptualizing I'm coming out with, okay? So 17 is the gate of following, or the gate of opinions. I usually remember opinions. If someone has the 17, they have opinions, right? But this is the 62 is like opinions with the data to back it up. Okay, so this is like somebody that's really good in business or organization, because they can, you know, sort of influence the way that things go, because they have the opinion and they got the data to back it up. That's the 62 is sort of the information to back it up. But the 17 is opinions. So Rachel has her 17 activated. That means that she, you know, she's going to come out with opinions that she feels certain about, because I think, unless you have an undefined ajna. Now, if you have an undefined ajna with a 17, your opinions are going to vary depending on who you're around, the transits, you know, the relationships, and how your ajna is activated. Anything that your center, you know, gets defined by is going to change the way that is sort of functioning. And if it's undefined, it's going to be inconsistent. It's not always a certain way that it works. So I do want to back up for 1 second before we keep going with 43 and 11. The undefined ajna is in head. If someone has both undefined, oh, you know what, it's down here. That's right. It's like this intellectual type, like Einstein, Jung, Freud, they all had open head and ajna. It's not a fixed way of thinking. It's not this certainty in a way. And so just to name that like people that have open head and ajna, there's an intelligence there. Now, people that have a defined head and ajna, there's obviously intelligence there, but it's more fixed in the way that they're going to process information and see things, you know, and they are here to feel more certain. Tiff, what'd you say?
Well, can I ask you a question about that while we're in it? It's like, I get accused. I mean, accused isn't kind of a rude word, but
A
of
certain word.
yeah, like I don't mean any vibe by that. I have received feedback that I have a very certain way of thinking and I'm so fixed in my thinking. And I'm like, well, I mean, I could explain that with all my Scorpio stuff. It's very fixed, it's very cut
God
and
bless,
dry,
right?
it's very
Yeah.
straightforward in my mind. But I now I'm like, that doesn't really describe me. So
May I ask, is it certain particular people that feel that way?
yes, and they do have
Defined head and ajna.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I feel like if
Exactly.
I'm amplifying that for them,
Shelly's cracking up. She's like, oh, there it is. Yeah.
and if I'm amplifying that for them and I'm in a projective field,
The other people, not you, Tiffany.
Yeah. No, we can all identify immediately with either side, right? Because
Yeah.
you're defined head and ajna, Shelly. So you're probably like, oh, that's why people are being so certain around me, and we're amplifying. Anyway, yeah, Tiff. So
Yeah.
What were you saying?
well, I mean,
Well, I mean, my certainty comes more from, I guess, like, I know I can do something, like if I put my mind to it, I can do it. I am like so good, like, oh, if I want to do pottery, I'll do that. I'll be successful. Like if I want to be a doctor, I'll be successful. So it's not really like certainty against other people. It's to be more like a certainty within myself of like, well, if I want to do it, I'll do it. And I just know I can do it. And somehow I can do it.
I do see in your chart.
But it's not
I can,
inflexibility.
Yeah. I can see,
Like
there
I
could be
tell
some
my kids,
other
I'm like,
elements in your chart
I just
too.
wanted to do something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you're
like
sacral, so it's by response.
Within myself and my own abilities to do things. And then like my kids are like uncertain about life and things like that. And I'm like, I've I don't know, been pretty certain about my own abilities. What it comes down to.
So what's an undefined ajna amplifying a defined ajna to do? Right?
I mean, it's really seeing it, and then it's sort of going, oh, it's noticing it. I feel really certain about this. Or, hey, they just said that, wow, I feel really certain. Maybe, maybe I don't want to share this then right now, or maybe I just want to watch and enjoy the seeing, but I don't have to say what my idea is. It can still be my idea, but let me see what it's like when I'm not speaking with this person about it, who is defining I'm amplifying because they have the defined head and ajna. And it would be interesting because me and you define head and ajna together, Tiff, because we have so many opposite electromagnetic gates. So it could be like, okay, this is what that feels like when I'm around this person with defined head and ajna, and how the certainty feels to me and how it comes out of my mouth. This is how it feels when it's an electromagnetic, and how the certainty feels and how it comes out of my mouth. This is how it feels when that remains open with someone, or when I'm by myself and the transits aren't doing it. So it's almost like you can have those 3 data collection points, but it just becomes being aware of it. Now, it may be after the fact that you're like, God, the certainty thing again, but it's ultimately, if we're operating correctly, eventually after deconditioning, after experimenting with for 7 years or 3.5, there's different points along the deconditioning, then it's just clean. And you don't feel like it doesn't come out as amplifying certainty. And probably you wouldn't hear, maybe they wouldn't have that feedback anymore. They might just, and it's difficult because a defined head and ajna person some of my experiences have been, they are certain about what their ideas are. And I'm like, you're wrong, but what does it matter for me to say that? They are certain.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, unless they say, Leisha, I'm inviting you to share. What do you think? Then I might say a little, I might, but I've had so many experiences of, frustration is a generator word, but I'm the best pretend generator there ever was. And so I've just felt frustrated of like, oh, but that's not it. And like trying to sort of have a discussion with it, and they're certain. So it's a fixed way that they think. So it's almost like, then it becomes, what am I going to do for my own health and my own correctness? Like, am I going to push against someone that's certain? Maybe, maybe sometimes it's worth it,
Yeah.
or not.
You don't
Yeah.
have to like explain. I don't have to explain that, no, I'm not that way. I can just go be, and it's not that I'm uncertain. It's just that
it's not fixed. Yeah.
I'm not amplifying that which I'm being told I'm amplifying in my own brain. So, or maybe I am and I'm unaware of it because I don't know. Anyways, I have other
Right, because you have the red, right?
Yes, and I
Have them in
have actually a lot of people in my life have defined head and ajna. So like, but
Yeah, your
I have
daughter, like your
my
dad.
my dad, my
Are you ever not around someone with a defined?
one of my best
Do you
friends.
think, Tiffany,
What?
do you think, Tiffany, that maybe the people with the defined head and ajna are certain about who you are, and that's really not who you are? It's like their own certainty of how they view you, that you're this way, and they know it, and they're certain that that's how you are, and you're really not, and you just kind of say like, okay, am I? And then you play that role, or you start to believe, it's the whole believe what people tell you you are, right? And maybe you're not, but that's what these people are certain that you are.
And that's like my
Just
3-5. That's like my 5, right? Like living in the projective field of what people think, and that can be its own frustration. But I'm into the game now, like game on.
I see you guys now.
I see what's happening here. But sometimes I'm around defined head and ajna, and there's a lot of depression because they're internalizing things, and I can feel it because I'm so sensitive, and I'm like, I don't want to feel that pressure. Like I'm sorry you're going through that. But there's also like a sweetness, because sometimes it's like, ooh, I didn't have an idea about that, and now I have an idea about that. So like there can be positive things with it. But
and that's yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Oh, I just see April's commenting that she has a question too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say about like what's so interesting. So my daughter and my husband are defined head and ajna, and I'm open with like no no gates, no channels. The only channel I have is the 63 up there. But anyway, I think it's interesting because like I appreciate being around people that are certain, because I feel so uncertain. So sometimes it feels like comforting that like my husband is very, like I feel like I'm certain when I'm with him, and it feels safe and secure, versus like the complete open-endedness feels like very scary and waffly to me at times. So I wonder if that's like kind of a, why I feel more secure. It's my interpretation of someone who is defined, because I like the certainty. I'm like, great, I'm glad someone thinks that they know, because I don't know. So it's just, I was just gonna like ask if that would be a way to kind of experience those defined centers.
Yeah, I mean, that's one side of the coin. That's like when, in those situations, it's amazing and it feels great. It's like, fine, you know what, you're certain, go for it. And the other side of that coin is that you're going, if you're not ever spending time in your own aura to be able to decondition from all that pressure all the time, then, it gets amplified, or then you feel like you have to be certain, right? So, but it's like surrendering to the mechanic can feel great. It's just like, you know what,
that's
go
beautiful,
for it,
because I do both. Like I have
totally. Yes.
And so it's like I come to it when I need it, but I also am like, oh my God, this is too much, and I need to like decompress. Exactly how you described it was perfect.
That's it. Oh, and I love the word decompress. It's like depress, depressurize, which can only happen when we're just alone, and as much as we can be.
Complete aloneness. I love it.
Absolute loneliness. No, but I mean, that is why in human design, we say, sleep in your own aura, because otherwise you're all night, that pressure in anywhere that we're open, we're pressurized by that center in someone defined. And there's a whole bunch of other sleep mechanics that maybe we should do a workshop on.
Let's do a workshop on sleep mechanics.
Do that for sure, because that's huge. Yeah, there's a lot to do with that.
Okay, I want to we have 10 minutes, so let's move to 4-3.
43. Oh yeah, 43. Gosh, I forgot we hadn't finished the gates. Let's do that because I do want to make sure we touch on the defined. One other point on the defined. Yeah, so the 43 is breakthrough or insight. And that is fear of rejection. So having these unique individual perspectives, anything down the middle of the body graph is individual. So that's a certain whole individual circuitry is a whole thing. But yeah, it's having unique individual perspectives, mental anxiety that your ideas are too weird, too freakish, and they will be rejected. And so you have this need to make sense to others. My dad has one channel, it's the 4323, genius to freak. He's an engineer, he's a genius, but that very much rings true, is just sort of, not wanting to share your ideas all the time because you're afraid you'll be rejected, because they are weird and mutative, So then you follow your strategy and authority, whether you share them or not.
I have a share on that one because I have the 43 in red. And so when I like last night, I was doing a psychic party. I was the reader for a group of women. And I kept finding myself saying, I'm scared to say this out loud because it sounds crazy, and then I would say it and they're like, oh my God. And it's like, makes so much sense. Right. So the example, I think I'm okay sharing, they were asking about a friend who had passed. And she said, I just want to know if she's around. Where is she? Is she with me? And I'm like, I'm scared to say this because I know she's not a tennis player and I know you're not a tennis player. But I see that she's like volleyed a ball back to you with like a racket. And it's like she's playing tennis with you. And they were like, we were playing pickleball last night and asking her to join us. And I'm like,
oh.
So there's so many things that I get afraid to say when I'm doing a psychic reading, but then I say it and it's totally fine. So it's very helpful to see it's not really a fear of rejection that I think of, but I can see why that wording would make sense.
Yeah.
And it having the unique perspective, it's like the clairvoyance. It's like, I don't really want to say it because it sounds so off, and then it's perfect for somebody.
Yeah.
So sorry.
And then it's following your response because you're a generator and your strategy is wait to respond. It's following your sacral response, strategy and authority to share that or not. And that was a yes because you were in this thing and you were working with all these different things with them, So I can see why it was heard, it was received because you were following your strategy and authority in sharing that, in expressing that. Because that's always what it comes down back to, as we've said. So 11 is, we said it's the gate of peace, the gate of ideas. It's the fear of darkness. Now, of course, I have it. Hendrix has it. His Ajna is defined, but I noticed there is a fear of darkness. He doesn't want to go in a hallway it could be daylight, and it's this fear of not being able to see somehow. It's having new ideas to share, but this mental anxiety about not having a new stimulating idea to think about or learn, anxiety about, sharing and manifesting your ideas. So it's the gate of ideas. If someone has the gate 11 activated, they probably have ideas out the wazoo, right? Now, if you're undefined, then it's going to be inconsistent with when you share them, whether it's invited to be shared, whether they manifest into anything or not, Okay. So I do want to point out that of course, the theme for the undefined Ajna, which is 53% of the population, is pretending to be certain. It's, am I trying to convince everyone that I'm certain? Now, there's other ways that this shows up. It's worrying about not understanding or remembering things. Oh my God, I have to take so many notes because I'm afraid I'm not going to remember things, instead of just letting them go in. And not that there's not, reasons to do that, times to do that and times not to do that, whatever. It's trying too hard to be intellectual, holding on to fixed mental processes, concepts, or opinions. This is all if your mind is running the show through your open Ajna. Now, this is the deconditioning process. You don't need to be certain. You don't need to worry about remembering things. You're not here to feel mentally insecure. It's just, you know what? I don't know. And being comfortable with that. Now that's a whole process to get there. I feel like it takes time to decondition these ideas that we need to be certain. We need to know exactly what we're doing and have the exact same, way that we think about things. And then it can sound like we have to figure this out. What should I do with my life? I've got to figure out what to do with my life. Where's my next move? I'm certain that anytime with an undefined ajna, if we say, I am certain that, it's like bing, 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 not self-statement, you know, I am certain that I have to know the answer. I have to put order to my life to get rid of the chaos. I have to make this new idea a reality in my life. I better not share this. People will think I'm strange. I better not share my opinion because I don't want to be challenged. I have to be ready for the challenge. What am I going to say? Almost like preemptively thinking about what you're going to say. The healthy version is realizing there's no need to be certain. Embrace uncertainty. Life is uncertainty, even for defined ajna people. There's inherent uncertainty in life, and we all can, I mean, we know this. Being okay with saying, I don't know, and being open-minded, having fluid, adaptable way of thinking, able to soak up new ideas without becoming fixed on anything. Being okay with changing your mind. Like my mom used to say, like, I can change my mind at any time. She had undefined head and ajna. You know, she didn't have much else undefined, but she had those undefined. I can change my mind at any time. And I'm like, oh, so lovely to have that thought. Enjoying having no fixed way of processing thoughts and this versatility of intelligence. It's not a fixed, you know, thing. With defined, it's always on, right? It's always on. So it's like always thinking, always processing. It may be difficult to sort of meditate because you can't stop this mental thing going on. Shelley is yeah. Like, I can't meditate. What do you people
Oh my
say?
God.
Meditate
That's like
for?
it's on my list to meditate. I'm like, I'll get to it sometime. Like for the past years, like I have a hard time meditating, really hard time.
That makes
And
sense.
I was thinking, like, when you were saying about certainty, sometimes like I'm really open, like, I don't know, but I am certain that I don't know. So like as a doctor, I'm like, well, I don't know what this is. Let's send you on to somebody else because I know I don't know what it is.
Ooh,
so I
that's
had
great.
that certainty, yes, of not knowing.
Oh, I love that.
Then,
I love that nuance.
But yeah, I can't, I need to meditate. I don't know how.
Well, maybe there's a different, you know, it's like a mental stimulation. Maybe there's a guided meditation where your mind can be sort of occupied with whatever is being said or something like that. I mean, it would depend on the rest of your chart.
I always
all
like
that, but
I try and I'm like when I walk, I just do like, or clean house. That's like my meditation. If I'm doing something, it's the whole busy the hand mind. So if I'm cleaning or sweeping or walking, then I'm not thinking. So I take that as kind of,
oh yeah, that makes sense. Like a moving meditation. It makes sense with your design and channel power and all of that.
Well, and you have the 24, which I don't know if you found, like we posted in the Inner Circle group, the 21 days of abundance meditation thing. And what I really like about it is that he uses a mantra that's different every day. And so with that 24, you know, it's called japa when you are repeating a mantra, and like we'll do it in yoga with our beads. You can like sometimes I'll knit, and every knit is like I'll say a mantra, right? Like a prayer. And so maybe mantra meditation would be interesting for you to experiment with.
It's great. I love that.
I'm like, everyone has to meditate though, guys. Like
there's a way to do it that, you know, can get you out of mind. It just might be different if your arrows are left, if your arrows are right, if you have defined head and ajna, if you have undefined. I mean, there's not a one size fits all, one size homogenized. There's not a one size homogenized thing that fits all. And that's the whole point of human design. There's no formula for everyone. With the defined ajna, the not self of the defined ajna, it can be this like allowing your mind to totally dominate your life, making decisions that override the authority in yourself. Now we're all doing that until we start to realize and you know, work with our mechanics, our human design body graph mechanics. But it's, you know, just fully just being up in the mind totally and not even aware of or following your inner authority. And creating anxieties from trying to work out decisions from your mind. Like, I've got to figure this out. It's almost the same sort of thing. And so I love that you said that, Shelley, about like, I'm certain that I don't know, you know, and you also, you know, this channel is, I don't know. I know. It's like a pulse, you know, any individual, this whole individual circuitry down the middle of the body graph is that. It's, I don't know, I know. So I can see how that's working together with the defined ajna in what you were saying. So I just love hearing the language in a new way. The healthy defined ajna is having the ability to conceptualize, having a particular thought process, having this, you know, of course, inbuilt structure for processing, and knowing that you're comfortable with concepts, research, comfortable reviewing and organizing information to be able to communicate it, and just knowing that you have a fixed way that you think and that you feel certain at times. And sort of, but it doesn't mean everybody has to be certain, and that like you can just share what you're certain about, and it can just be your thing that you're certain about, speaking from the undefined ajna perspective. Okay, so I think those are the main points with everything, and it's 1 o'clock. So yeah, is there anything else that's coming up for you guys?
I just love what you said about your mom saying I can change my mind anytime, because I had a boiling point last week where I had something that really scared me. I didn't sleep almost every day. And there was too much, like little things were too much. And so that's how I worked my way out of it, was I can change my mind anytime. You know, I don't have to do anything. I can change my mind on this. I also have the power to change the way I think, right? So I don't have to get stuck in repetitive thinking, because I don't have to get stuck in negative thinking. I can go on a mental diet. I can be like, oop, there's that thought. I don't need it. Thank you, mind, kiss you goodbye, and come back in and change my mind anytime. That is it just is such a God nod that you said that, Brendy said that, because it was very much what I was living on last week.
Yeah, that's such a good, like, talk about the mantra, like I can change my mind anytime. And that, I mean, that's totally what you did, like you're just like, and I don't know if that's an undefined ajna or just anybody with the ajna or whatever. Maybe a defined ajna can't say that. I don't know, but maybe they can. Shelley, do you identify with I can change my mind at any time? Or just kind of maybe it's more, I can let my mind do its thing and just watch.
I think I'm learning to do that. I mean, I don't think I'm like a closed-minded person, but I realize, that I can, well, actually,
in a way,
I am learning to allow myself to change my mind. So I'm like, it's okay. So
maybe that language is good.
Yeah, like, even if I feel so certain about it, and then I'm like, if I change my mind, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I was certain about that. That's not. I give myself permission to change my mind, even if I feel certain about something.
I love that.
Well,
that's a learned skill.
The ajna is so enlightening. Thank you, Leisha, for guiding us today. Leisha is a 1-3 projector, splenic projector, and she has the gift of the guidus. This is so fun. And Heather, we're glad you're here, and everybody watching later, we're glad you're here watching later. And so, next month we're going to be talking about the throat. So Leisha was mentioning how we did head and ajna, and this kind of makes up the mind. Where you see in this brown square in the chart, that's the throat center. So she has the throat defined. I also have the throat defined. No, I do have the throat defined, and we'll go through that next month on the first Thursday at noon Central. One other bit of housekeeping, our masterclass this month is taught by me. I'm teaching a psychic catalyst, and so we're going to have exercises. So it's going to be mainly exercise and not much theory about it. It's just going to be psychic catalyst practicing, and we're going to do that on the 17th at 11 Central, because it was all I had. So I hope to see you guys then, and everything else is in your member portal, and we're here for you. Alicia's note, you can book with us at wiseguyscollective.com. Your membership coupon is 25% sign OFF, 25% off. So we will see you next time, guys. Thanks for being here and sharing what you see. Yeah. All right, bye.
Mwah.